This may be Sonic the Hedgehog's 30th anniversary, but lately it feels like some of Sega's earliest mascot characters also want to get in on the action. Just in the last couple of months, we've not only reviewed Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World, but also a remake of Alex Kidd in Miracle World. While I wasn't especially fond of that last game, it did make me wonder if any of the Alex Kidd games have good endings. After all, Sega managed to release 6 games in 4 years. And I mean, one of them has to have a satisfying conclusion, right? Well, that's what I want to find out today. So, turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the stories and endings for the entire Alex Kidd franchise. This is Game Over, the early years. Long before Alex Kidd became the punchy mascot character we know today, he started off as something a bit more familiar. That's right, this franchise began its life as a video game tie-in for Dragon Ball, but was ultimately scrapped when Sega lost the rights midway through production. A couple years later, the reworked project became the game that we know today as Alex Kidd in Miracle World, which was the first of 6 games to come out between 1986 and 1990. This is also where we're going to start our quest to find out which Alex Kidd game has the best story and ending. So then, who is Alex Kidd? Well, based on what we're told in this 1986 platformer, he's a teenage boy who lives alone on Mount Eternal. He's been training for half his life to perfect the ancient shell core fighting technique, which is a form of martial arts that specializes in powerful punches. That comes in useful when the evil Janken the Great attempts to take over Ares by kidnapping King Thunder, Prince Eigel, and his fiancée, Princess Laura, as well as turn everybody else into stone. Unaffected, Alex sets out on an adventure that takes him into the sky, deep underwater, through the forest, into this dangerous volcano, and eventually to the Redaxian Castle, which is where our hero locates the captured Prince Eigel. This is important because he points Alex to the Moonlight Stone in the Nibbana Kingdom. The only problem is that when he gets there, he discovers that Janken the Great has stolen the Moonlight Stone, which, as you guessed it, means the princess is in another castle. No, literally, here she is. She tells Alex that the way to save the Redaxian people is to use the crown, which involves figuring out this simple puzzle game thing. Thankfully, Alex does it, and this is how his Miracle World adventure ends. Now, I know what you're thinking. We saved Prince Eigel, rescued Princess Laura, and even reversed the whole stone curse thing on the Redaxian people. So, what about King Thunder? Believe it or not, it actually took Sega 4 years to answer that question. Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle picks up with our hero still trying to solve the whole missing king mystery. Word on the street is that King Thunder, who now goes by the name King Thor for some reason, is being held on the planet Paper Rock, which is named after a group of people who are renowned for playing paper, rock, scissors. This is where a new baddie named Asha lives, so Alex decides to follow the crumbs to Paper Rock in order to investigate. The result is a surprisingly similar adventure that looks a whole lot better thanks to being on the 16-bit Genesis. Alex runs, jumps, and punches his way through a planet filled with unhelpful creatures and randomly placed blocks just looking to be destroyed. Alex spends most of the game just trying to get to the Sky Castle, which is where the six-armed Asha challenges our hero to, that's right, a game of rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, that sucks, but here's what happens next. Now that we've rescued King Thor, uncaged Prince Eigel, saved the Princess Laura, and reversed the whole stone curse placed on the Redaxian people, Alex Kidd is finally ready to get a little rest and relaxation. The follow-up to his Miracle World outing was a little-played racing game called Alex Kidd BMX Trial. There's not a whole lot of story in this one, so you shouldn't expect much from the ending. We get this congratulations screen, a paragraph preparing you for the next trial, and then a screen saying the end. And that's it. Also, the game is garbage. Let's move on. After a brief stint as an extreme sports star, Alex Kidd is back to his old games, exploring the mysteries of the Miracle World. It's on this journey when he discovers that the 12 stars of the Aries constellation have been stolen. But how? And more importantly, why? To get the answers, our hero climbs to the top of Mount Eternal to talk to an ancient wizard named Dalida, who reveals that this strange occurrence has happened one other time. You see, 5,000 years ago, Alex's ancestor Halifax Kidd set out on a journey beyond the realm of space and time to defeat the evil entity known as Ziggurat. Halifax may have been able to rescue the stars, but he did not defeat Ziggurat, who vowed to someday return and finish the job. Well, that day is now, and Alex will need to step up and follow in his ancestors' footsteps into the unknown. Yeah, the battle may have started thousands of years ago, but Alex is ready to finish the fight. Alex Kidd The Lost Stars is a surprising departure from what we saw in the first game. The goal is to travel around the galaxy collecting the 12 Miracle Balls, which is where Ziggurat hid the stars. Wait, hang on. Miracle Balls? Why does that sound familiar? Oh, it reminds me of this other game that Sega was working on, but I just can't quite put my finger on it. Oh well, I'm sure it was just a coincidence. So then, no matter if you're playing the arcade version or the Master System port, the endings are basically the same. One looks pretty good, while the other one, well, it looks like garbage. They're real short, so I'm just gonna play them back to back. That way you can see what Sega was trying to go for. Here's what happens when you find all of those lost stars. Now here's a fun fact. Alex Kidd High-Tech World was my first exposure to the punchy hero. This was one of the very first games that I got when I bought a used Sega Master System back in the day. And for a long time I assumed that this is what the entire series was like. Oh man, boy was I wrong. Instead of the usual platforming action, this is more of a puzzle game that has us going on a scavenger hunt for the 8 pieces of a map that'll take us to High-Tech World. Oh, yeah, that's actually the first thing that you need to know about this Alex Kidd game. You're not actually in High-Tech World. You see, it's this cool arcade that Alex's buddy Paul tells him about. But seeing as Paul is kind of an asshole, he rips up the map and he hides all the pieces around the castle. This sets up an adventure where Alex will need to find items, answer trivia questions, be in a certain room at the exact right time, and so on and so forth. And as unlikely as that sounds, that's kind of most of the game. I'm not even joking. Now, Alex does eventually piece together the map and head towards High-Tech World, but he's ambushed by ninjas. This is some fun foreshadowing of what our hero will go through in the next game, but for now, all you need to know is that Alex needs to figure out a way to get past the gate guard and leave town. This was always the point where I would get stuck. In fact, I spent so much time trying to figure out where to go that I ended up calling Sega's tip hotline for answers. And you know what they told me? Well, apparently you have to pray at the temple 100 times to get the travel pass. Yeah, that's right, 100 times. Who the hell would have figured that out? Now, what they didn't tell me is that there are actually a couple of other ways to get the pass. One that involved running a whole bunch of errands, and another one that just requires a lot of luck. But no, I didn't do that. Instead, what I did was I prayed at that temple 100 times. And yes, I hated every single second of it. Here's what happens when you finally get to High-Tech World. Prepare to be disappointed. If you've noticed that the Alex Kidd franchise is beginning to feel a bit unfocused, then you're not alone. After saving the world and stars, our hero spent most of the last game just trying to get to a local arcade. For his final adventure, Alex Kidd goes where few mascots have gone before. That's right, into a completely separate Sega franchise. After teaming up with the Fantasy Zone ship a couple of games ago, Alex Kidd and Shinobi World is a full-on mashup that combines 2 of Sega's most recognizable franchises into one underrated package. The story involves Alex and his girlfriend vacationing on planet Shinobi, which I hear is gorgeous this time of year. Unfortunately, before things can get hot and heavy, a dark figure shows up and kidnaps the nameless girlfriend. Oh no, it's literally every other 8-bit game. But before our hero can be annoyed by the lazy cliché, a white ninja, who is definitely not Joe Musashi, reveals that Alex's girlfriend was caught in the middle of a 10,000-year battle between him and the Dark Ninja, who has come to take control of the Miracle World. To once again banish evil from this world, Whitey decides to give Alex ninja powers in hopes that he'll be able to defeat the Dark Ninja. Alright, look, this setup is really only here so that we can fight off ninjas in a whole bunch of Shinobi stages. In fact, I'm ready to say right now that this is much more of a Shinobi game than it is an Alex Kidd sequel. It has Shinobi bosses, the Shinobi map, and even Shinobi gameplay. Just about the only thing missing is that cool throwing star bonus stage from the actual Shinobi game. It ultimately ends with a one-on-one battle against Hanzo, who we know as the Dark Ninja. Compared to all of the rock, paper, scissors battles that we've endured, this is legitimately one of the most exciting boss fights of the entire Alex Kidd franchise. It's also kind of the perfect way to end the series. Using a sword and his newfound ninja skills, Alex Kidd defeats Hanzo, and this is what happens next. Alright, so these endings aren't great. Sega just never figured out how to give this big-eared kid a satisfying ending. The fact that he ends the series with a girlfriend, that's a positive sign, but her not having a name is not great. The truth is, Sega clearly had no idea what to do with this character. I mean, they started out strong, but eventually it just turns into Alex driving a BMX bike, Alex trying to get to an arcade, and Alex riding the coattails of a far better Sega franchise. Even if Sonic hadn't come around to save the day, I'm not sure how much more juice Alex had in the tank. And if I'm being honest, I don't think there's a whole lot more for me to say about the franchise. Sure, Alex Kidd may have been an important stepping stone for Sega, but I think we can all agree that Wonder Boy was the better mascot character. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, the early years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes almost every week. Now, here's the question I have for you. What Alex Kidd game had the best ending? And, which one had the worst? There are so many to choose from and no real front runners here, so I can't wait to see your picks in the comments below. In other news, you'll be getting a double dose of Game Over this week. To celebrate a brand new James Bond themed review series over at the Defunct Games website, we're going to be kicking things off on Friday with a spy-related Game Over episode. Can you guess what game we're going to be covering? I bet you can't. Also, don't worry, we're going to have reviews going up this week. It's not just going to be Game Over episodes. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,